What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Maddison Hill, and yes, it's time for another Pop Off with Maddison. For today's Pop Off, I'm going to be talking about the Chrisleys, you guys, aka Todd and Julie Chrisley, because so much has been happening with them this week, and we need to discuss. So I've talked about the Chrisleys once on my channel before, but for those of you who don't know who Todd and Julie Chrisley are, they are two stars of the reality show Chrisley Knows Best. They were recently convicted on tax evasion and fraud, and they had to report to prison this week. Todd has to serve 12 years in prison, while his wife Julie has to serve 7. And you guys, since they reported to prison earlier this week, a lot has been happening. Their daughter Savannah Chrisley has taken her podcast. She's dragging fellow reality star Jen Shah. She's from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. She's going through a similar but also not so similar situation. She got way less prison time, so Savannah Chrisley is very upset about that. So I'm going to fill you in on that. Todd Chrisley also had a podcast episode come out after he already reported to prison. He's talking about the future and he's maintaining their innocence, so I want to talk about that. Also, you guys, Julie Chrisley, she is in a different facility than she was originally supposed to go to. She's now in a facility in Kentucky. She was supposed to be in a facility in Florida. We're going to get into that as well. Basically, I'm just going to fill you in on all of the major things that have been happening with the Chrisleys this week, because I'm sure you guys have been seeing their names in a ton of headlines, and instead of having to go and read all of those individual articles, I just want to fill you in on the biggest things that are happening with this family this week. And also, for some of you who are like, wow, Chrisley's interesting. This year on my channel, I really want to make an effort to kind of switch up the celeb tea that we discuss, and I feel like this Chrisley's tea is the perfect opportunity to do that, you guys, because it really is some interesting celeb tea, and I have some thoughts on it, and I know a lot of people also have thoughts on it, so we're not going to waste any more time because there is a lot to get into here. So let's go ahead and get straight to unwrapping these Todd and Julie Chrisley facts. Okay, so as I briefly mentioned at the beginning of this video, Todd and Julie Chrisley were convicted back in June of last year of fraud and tax evasion, you guys. According to reports, they were accused of faking audits, bank statements, and their personal finances to obtain $36 million in loans, which of course, you know, the prosecution argued that they used that $36 million to fund their very luxurious lifestyle. Also, as I mentioned, Todd Chrisley was sentenced to 12 years in prison, while his wife Julie was sentenced to 7 years in prison. They also both have to serve 16 months of probation following their sentencing, and they also have to pay $17 million in restitution. Now, I do want to mention that Todd and Julie Chrisley have both maintained their innocence throughout this entire process, and they are fighting this conviction. They've already filed an appeal, and although they were technically convicted in June of last year, they just had to report to prison this week, and obviously they'll be serving their time at different prisons. So Todd is actually going to be serving his time at a federal prison in Pensacola, Florida. This prison is going to be a low security facility. It's near a Navy base, and based on reports, this prison is work and program oriented, so Todd will be having to go to work Monday through Friday. According to Forbes, you guys, this is, quote, the second cushiest prison in the United States. So it's not like Todd Chrisley is going to be locked up in the prisons that, you know, we see on Lockup or things like that. Maybe I'm the only one who watches shows like that, but I did read an article about what a typical day looks like for an inmate in this facility, and I will say, even though Forbes calls it the second cushiest prison in the United States, I mean, it's still very regimented. They have a very regimented schedule. They have regimented eating times. They wake up early. They go to work. Obviously, they can do activities that you probably wouldn't have access to at other prisons. They can have visitors Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which again is not like a normal prison. At least I don't think so. I'm just trying to say that, well, yes, it's being described as a cushy environment. It still definitely is not like he would be living his normal life. Julie, on the other hand, you guys, she was originally set to serve her time at another facility in Florida, a medium security facility at that. However, it's now being reported that she's actually going to serve her time at a federal medical center in Lexington, Kentucky. Now, the place where Julie is going to be serving her time, you guys, it's also described as a minimum security facility, and it's unclear as to why she's been moved to serve her time at a federal medical facility. TMZ reports, you guys, that it's not an indicator that something is necessarily medically wrong with Julie, nor that she's needing any treatment, which, you guys, brings me to Todd Chrisley's podcast episode that he obviously pre-recorded and scheduled to come out after him and Julie went ahead and reported to their subsequent prisons. Personally, I find it kind of eerie that Todd Chrisley decided to schedule it after they reported to their facilities, but honestly, I get the dramatic. So during the podcast, you guys, Todd talked about this being their first experience with the legal system, saying, quote, the legal system, which we've never been a part of until now, is a very complex system that we just are still learning and we don't know, which is why we have all of the attorneys that work for us. You just have to hope and pray to God that when one division of the judicial system fails, that the next level, which is the appellate court, report, sees the mistakes, and tries to correct those mistakes. He went on to say, quote, "That's the best that you can hope for, and you have to put your faith in God and hope that God is going to lift you up and push you forward, and that's what we're going to do right now." During this episode, Todd went on to note that him and Julie's situation is not as bad as other people's situations with the legal system, so he definitely is aware of that. He acknowledged that. Todd also went on to say that he knows that this is not his final destination. He said it might be his future for the time being, but he has faith that the judicial system is going to turn it around. And he also made an interesting comment during this podcast episode, you guys, that neither him nor his wife Julie are dying of cancer that they know of, which I thought that was a really interesting comment considering Julie is obviously now serving her time at this medical facility. So maybe that was his way of getting ahead of that, saying, okay, nothing is medically wrong with her. She's just serving her time there. But it's also a little interesting because as I understand it, again, I have watched the show intermittently. I'm not a diehard fan, but I do know that Julie Chrisley was diagnosed with breast cancer previously. I believe she's in remission, or at least she doesn't have to take any medication anymore. But I just thought that comment by Todd Chrisley was interesting, and I wanted to let you guys know about it. Now, in addition to Todd Chrisley releasing a podcast episode addressing their recent situation, Todd and Julie's daughter, Savannah Chrisley, also has a podcast, and in her recent episode, you guys, she is going off. She is definitely showing how angry she is with their current situation, and this is the episode where she discussed her parents' case compared to Jen Shah's case. Jen Shah is from the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. For those of you who don't know what's going on with Jen Shah, she was accused of running a telemarketing scheme that targeted elderly individuals and vulnerable individuals. A lot of people lost a lot of money. They got in serious debt. Some people lost their homes. Like, it was really, really bad. Now, Jen Shah was originally charged with wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. She was facing up to 30 years in prison, you guys. Now, she initially pled not guilty and maintained her innocence. However, she later changed her plea to guilty. She took a plea deal, and she was just recently sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. And this is something that Savannah Chrisley made very clear she does not think is fair. During her podcast episode, Savannah noted that she can't wrap her head around why her parents were sentenced to so much more time, considering they didn't hurt anyone, they don't have any victims, whereas Jen Shah has hundreds of victim statements against her. Savannah went on to say, quote, that none of it adds up. She noted that her parents have not admitted guilt and they stand firm in their innocence. She went on to say, quote, we're standing by our truth and that is not guilty and there are no victims. I've committed myself to figuring out what that is and for us to get to the other side of this so that we can help other people who are going through things like this, aka helping people who are innocent and convicted of crimes. Also, you guys, I want to mention that Savannah made headlines earlier this week for posting a message on her Instagram to her mom. She posted this photo of her mom and said that she will continue to fight for her. I'm not gonna lie, that message definitely tugged at my heartstrings because I'm freaking human, I can't help it. But you guys, obviously I have a lot of thoughts about all of this. I mean, I can't believe that Todd and Julie did actually have to report this week. They tried to have it pushed by 21 days, but the judge was like, absolutely not, it's time. I have a lot of thoughts running through my mind, and I don't really feel appropriate shambonging in this situation because we are talking about, you know, Jen Shah's victims, we're talking about people going to prison, we're talking about a family being completely disrupted. So instead, we are going to hydrate and send positive vibes to everyone here in the House of Hill, especially right before the weekend. We always need positive vibes before the weekend. Okay, you guys, so here's the thing about the Chrisleys. When it was announced how much prison time they were each going to have to serve, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was very surprised. And I don't entirely know how this system works, but it does sound like they are going to have to serve these sentences in their entirety. At least that's how I'm understanding it. Unless they do win their appeal, then that would be a totally different story. But it's not sounding like they can get out early on good behavior. Again, I could totally be wrong on that, but the way people are talking, the way people are reacting, and the way people are reporting is that Todd is going to be in that facility for 12 freaking years and Julie's going to be in hers for 7. And while yes, their prisons obviously don't sound as bad as maybe a state facility, I mean, generally federal facilities are known as cushier prisons, nicer prisons, not as serious prisons. But to me, a prison is a freaking prison. That is not your daily life. You have no control over yourself. Someone else has control over you 1000% of the time. I mean, in my opinion, they're still going away. They're still having to spend many years away from their family. Their family is being disrupted. They're gonna miss out on so many milestones and so many things. I just still see it as a sad situation for the Chrisley family. And something I think that really gets me is their daughter Savannah. She's 25 years old. Obviously, she's very involved in this whole situation, but she is actually taking full custody of her younger brother, who's 16, and also her niece. So Todd and Julie Chrisley have custody over their granddaughter. It is Todd's eldest son's child. They have custody over her. So while they're away, Savannah has full custody of her younger brother and her niece, who is still in elementary school, which is a huge responsibility for a 25-year-old. Obviously, I know she has resources. Obviously, I know she's gonna be fine, but her having money, I don't think takes away from the fact that she is taking on a major responsibility that I think is a lot for a 25-year-old. Again, that's just my personal opinion. Some of you guys could be like, 25 girl is totally suitable to be a mother figure for these kids. I personally think that's a lot for a 25-year-old. So I do have to give Savannah props there for stepping up for her family. And when it comes to the Chrisleys' guilt or innocence, you guys, I can't lie, I struggle with it. I don't know what to believe. Obviously, a jury and a judge believe that they are guilty of these crimes. They believe that they need to pay restitution. They believe that they need to go behind bars. I'm like, yeah, you broke the law. What did you expect? You're gonna have consequences. But then on the other hand, I'm like, if they are innocent and they are going through all of this, like, how horrible, not only for them, but again, also their family. I am just completely torn when it comes to their guilt or innocence. I honestly do not know. And I did not watch these trials day by day, minute by minute. So I don't know. I really struggle with it. I think that's why I prefer to stick to true crime, where there is a clear bad guy. There is someone clearly who broke the law. And really quick, I want to compare their situation to Jen Shah's, because Savannah Chrisley obviously brought that up. I am not a lawyer, but the way I understand the judicial system to work is Jen Shah is getting leniency because she pled guilty, she took a deal, she admitted to her crime. You know, she said when she was at her sentencing, I understand now what I did was wrong. She apologized to her family, she apologized to the court, she apologized to the judge. So that is why she is getting a lesser sentence compared to Todd and Julie Chrisley, who have not admitted guilt. They're maintaining their innocence and they're still fighting. So while I totally understand Savannah's anger, and I do think she makes good points saying, you know, Jen Shah has actual victims, my parents do not. Obviously the victims, I guess in their situation, would be the banks that they allegedly defrauded. However, the fact that Jen Shah admitted guilt and her parents haven't, I think that's why she has the lesser sentence. I don't really think it's anything more than that, unfortunately. But again, I could be totally wrong. I'm not a lawyer. That's just my own 2 cents from watching certain things. Either way though, you guys, I think that this is definitely something to keep an eye on. Clearly, Todd and Julie Chrisley are not done fighting. They are going to continue to fight for their innocence. They are not letting this thing go. They are not giving up. Ugh, I just hate situations like this because I feel like nobody is winning, I guess, except for the people who are going to be on the receiving end of their $17 million in restitution. But regardless of Todd and Julie's guilt or innocence, their family is innocent. Their kids are innocent. Yes, they benefited from the luxurious lifestyle. You can argue that, but they didn't know how they were getting the luxurious lifestyle. So for them, their entire life is totally being blown up by this, blown up by the fact their parents are not going to be around for the next 12 and 7 years. And again, on a human level, I feel for them. I just can't freaking help it. All right, you guys, those are my thoughts on the Chrisleys. I want to hear all of your thoughts and feels down below. While you guys are at it, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button and don't forget that notification bell. For more content, make sure you guys follow me over on Instagram and TikTok. And of course, don't forget to keep coming back to my channel to check out my YouTube shorts. If you guys want to show me a little extra love, or you just want to make sure I see your comment, don't forget you can also hit that super thanks button down below. You can also check out all of my merch over at my merch store at houseofhill.com. And on that note, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!